What if science and spirituality, religions, all the world's religions, if it's just a different language saying all the same stuff, describing the same things, but in a different way, from a different viewpoint, different perspective, different relationship with that thing? I was just thinking about the moon and the sun and solstice and how that's coming up, winter solstice, and how our ancestors, pretty much across the board, all over the world, our ancestors celebrated, watched, counted, recognized in some way the solstices. And the reason they did that is because they had people back then who read the skies and who could see the signs in the skies that would tell them information, would tell them important survival information. And we always think of these spiritual leaders, these medicine people, or these magicians, whoever, high priestesses, witches, all that. We always think of them as these spiritual beings where their realm is the land of spirit. You know, they go and they help us with our soul problems, or they helped the tribe with magical things and they did magical rituals, which they did. But the difference is that was all still intimately tied in with their relationship with the natural world. So these people who could read the sky, who knew what was coming, who knew the seasons were changing, that was important information. That was survival information. It was scientific information. These were things that people learned through observation of the natural world because they had to, because their survival depended on it. It wasn't some woo-woo nonsense from above. I mean, it might be a little woo-woo, and the sun does shine its light from above, but it's not nonsense. And it just got me to thinking about a subject that I'm often thinking about, which is how do we bridge the two worlds between religion and science? Because we all know that science is catching up to all sorts of crazy ideas that spiritual people have been expressing for quite some time. And I'm not saying that science has proven anything necessarily, but a lot of these discoveries about the nature of the makeup of things, they seem to indicate that a lot of spiritual ideas are feasible. Things that used to be poo-pooed as nonsense, as ridiculous, as unscientific, as it turns out, it's all coming full circle. We're finding that, wait a second, all this stuff really is connected in intimate ways. There's energies that we can't see that are affecting things. Don't get me started on molecules. Holy cannoli, molecules, the things we know about the building blocks of life. Craziness. It's all craziness. Even when you picture your own body. And your own body, we've learned now, is made up of all sorts of bacterias and other little creatures that crawl on your skin and live in your gut and make your life possible. If you didn't have those little creatures living on you, you would die. You need those little creatures. Even you, as a singular, put that in quotes, singular being, you too are a host of a bajillion other little beings, tiny beings. Just like the earth. The earth, you look at the earth, it looks like from far away, it's one big thing. One big ball floating there in the vastness of space. And you think, well, the little humans, they're like a colony of bacterias. And the trees, and it's a bunch of different bacterias. Just growing and colonizing and doing what we do on the skin of our Mother Earth. And it's not quite as different as we think it is, as it seems to be. This is what I think they mean by as above, so below, is that the big systems mirror the tiny systems. And if you go down, you go up and down and you see the big system and the little system and you go back and forth, you'll notice there's a lot of similarities between these different systems that we think are so different, like the vascular system of a tree versus our vascular system, or the network of veins on the earth that is our rivers and our water sources. It's not unlike the water that runs in our own bodies. So I don't know what we're doing with science, trying to prove anything wrong, trying to prove that spirituality is silly. But we need it. We need it because some people aren't going to go and sit and read a bunch of dry-ass, boring articles about science. Because there are as many ways of explaining the world as there are individual human beings upon it. And we get very caught up in what's true and what's right and what's scientifically possible. And I'd like to tell you and remind you that we don't know anything. We think we know a lot of stuff. And we've done a lot of things, We've got all this technology. Lots of technology. It's supposed to make our lives easier, and it has. A lot of it makes our lives way easier than it used to be. We don't even have to care about whether or not the sun is going to rise after it sets on the longest day, or the shortest day, longest night. We don't have to care about that anymore. We can forget that that's even happening. We can completely shut ourselves into a world where we never go outside. We never see the sky. And we just go from our house to our car in our garage, and we drive to our job in the city, and park our car in the parking garage and go up to our little cubicle, and we just never see the sky. And we don't know, as a species, we don't know what that will do to our bodies. We don't know what that will do to our hearts and our minds and our souls. But I look around and I can't help but wonder if it might not help if we paid a little bit more attention to this place that we live, instead of focusing so much on productivity. But see, this is a societal problem. I don't expect you as an individual to be able to do anything to change it or fix it, except in your own personal lives. And that can be really challenging because it's not set up to support people in their healthiest spiritual, psychological, and physical expressions. It's not productive to the powers that be if we were to spend a bunch of time idle in the forest, despite the fact that I think that would make us all much happier. It's made me happy. It has changed my life. I'll testify to that. I've always been a person who's spent time outside, but in the last few years, I've been able to spend a lot of time outside, even more than usual. Like most of my life, I like to be outside. And I have learned so much just by spending time with trees and plants and the garden. And when you spend time doing that kind of stuff, you sort of realize what's important, and you start whittling down what you really need. You recognize what's truly important when you're sitting out in the woods and you have nothing but, the clothes on your back, maybe a joint. And you're just sitting there and filled with bliss. And you don't have a brand new car. You don't have $80,000 sitting around for your next vacation. Shit, man, you don't even know how you're going to pay for groceries next week. But you're sitting there in the forest at that moment thinking, man, I feel connected, supported, loved, blissful, held. All these things come from the forest. Comes from outside, not just the forest. That's just where I'm at. I got trees. If you're in the desert, if you're by the ocean, anywhere there's a natural place, the natural world will hold you and teach you. And this time of year, it's hard to tell, but in the springtime and the summertime, you'll be walking through the forest and you'll start to realize, well, heck, there's a lot of food in here just growing. There's berries. There's all sorts of plants with roots you can eat. Lots of stuff. Greens, herbs, all sorts of stuff you can eat. And then you start looking and you're like, man, there's a lot of wood here. Like this tree fell. I cut that up. I could build something. I can make a chair. Amazon who? We don't need that. We live on this earth. This earth that turns out provides literally everything we could ever need for survival. It's all here. We don't need to be buying everything the way that we do. But we also don't have time. Who has time to make a chair? It's all part of the paradox. That's why I'm talking about it. So maybe we can, as a collective, one day move beyond fear and scarcity. That's my real dream. If the world could finally move beyond fear and scarcity and recognize that we have what we need, we have everything we could ever need, that the good Lord has provided. And that it is not to return to my original points and thoughts, it's not unscientific. It is deeply scientific to recognize just how much the world, the earth, supports us, and to what extent we would not exist if this world didn't exist. That is a fact. You think you'd be floating out in space, picking space berries? I don't think so. It sort of feels like another one of them paradoxes where you've got spirit on the one hand and you got science on the other hand, and they are mutually exclusive things. You cannot have both. You can't study spirit in a way that is scientific, and you can't do science in a way that is spiritually informed. But I tell you that's incorrect, because the world we're talking about is the exact same world. It's the same phenomena. Dun, 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 dun. We can embrace both, and I know this because I do. It's possible to embrace both things, because you have to remember that we don't know anything. We think we know so much, but we know nothing. We know nothing of the real, we don't know what the future holds. We don't know who's out there. We don't even know what those drones are off the coast of New Jersey. We have no idea what's going on. You think we know everything in the vastness of this universe? We are constantly revising our scientific papers and ideas, and that's why, you don't have scientific facts. In the science community, you have theories. If something becomes a theory, well, that's pretty well established, but it's still a theory, because you never know what technology is going to come about that will allow us to determine even deeper what the heck is going on here. So this Sunday, this third Sunday in Advent, I'd love to invite you to ponder, consider your assumptions. What do you take for granted to be true and to be reality? And what if you're wrong? Wouldn't it be fun to be wrong about some of these things? Some of these things that we assume to be true, some of these things we take for granted. Man, it would be really nice to be wrong about a lot of stuff. I hear people talk about how they feel about themselves, for example. If you could be wrong about your bad opinion about yourself, wouldn't that be great? Let me tell you, you are. We are wrong about so many things. Because we have a limited perception, and we can only perceive with our own individual human minds, human perspectives. And that is very limited. There is no way for us at this moment to really understand what it is to be a tree, or what it is to be a mountain, or what it is to be a bee, or a fox, or a bear, any of that. We can watch them and we can say, well, he's looking for food, or he's sitting there to rest. He's probably not looking at that view. Bears don't look at views. But we're finding maybe they do. An awful lot of bears, they sit and they gaze at a view. And we thought, well, bears don't. I mean, animals have no feelings. Well, have you ever had a dog? Anybody who's had a dog knows that's not true. Animals don't have feelings. Give me a break. Tell that to Leonard when I come home after being gone for a day. And the look in his eyes and the scream he emits. You look at that boy and you tell me that he doesn't feel emotions. Anywho, however you feel spiritually, whoever you follow, whoever you believe in, Mother Earth, the good Lord, anybody. If you're an atheist, there's no denying that this earth has been sustaining us, feeding us, clothing us, giving us the very air we breathe. This earth has done that. That's scientific. And it's also deeply spiritual. God's out there. God's in those mountains, in those trees, in that ocean. You can go find him. Or her. Them. Thank you for listening. I hope you have a beautiful Sunday and are enjoying this pre-Christmas season. I am the disreputable Reverend Hannah Winters. Bye.